The stagecoach rattled violently as it hit another rut in the unforgiving Wyoming Territory road, jolting Penelope Rawlins from her fitful slumber. She clutched her small leather-bound journal tighter against her chest, as if it might somehow shield her from the uncertainty that lay ahead in this vast, untamed land. The year was 1875, and Penelope, 22 years old with nothing but $10 to her name, and a teaching certificate, had left everything familiar behind in Boston following the devastating loss of her parents to influenza. The elderly woman seated across from her offered a sympathetic smile. "First time out west, dear," Penelope nodded, tucking a wayward strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. "Is it that obvious? Your fine dress gives you away." The woman gestured to Penelope's travel-worn but clearly Eastern attire. "That and the way you flinch every time we hit a bump." "Don't worry, we're almost to Silver Creek. It's a decent town growing fast with the silver mine bringing in folks." "I hope so," Penelope replied softly. "I'm to be the new schoolteacher there." At least, that had been the plan until the letter had arrived just days before her departure, informing her that Silver Creek had already hired someone else. But with her childhood home sold and nowhere else to go, Penelope had boarded the train westward anyway, clinging to hope that something would work out once she arrived. The stagecoach crested a hill, and Silver Creek came into view, a collection of wooden buildings nestled in a valley, surrounded by towering mountains and sprawling rangeland. Smoke rose from chimneys, and even from this distance Penelope could see people moving about the main street, tiny as ants from her vantage point. "There she is," the driver called back. "Silver Creek. We'll be there in 20 minutes, folks." Penelope felt her stomach twist with anxiety. Where would she go? What would she do? The money in her purse wouldn't last more than a few days at a hotel. The stagecoach lurched to a stop before the Silver Creek Hotel, a 2-story wooden structure with a wide porch. Penelope gathered her carpetbag and stepped down onto the dusty street, immediately assaulted by the unfamiliar sounds and smells of a frontier town horse's snorting, the blacksmith's hammer ringing against anvil, the scent of livestock mingling with cooking aromas from nearby establishments. "Miss Rawlins." Penelope turned to find a tall, broad-shouldered man approaching her. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but she could see he had a strong jawline darkened by stubble. He wore simple clothes, a cotton shirt, dark vest, and worn denim pants tucked into scuffed boots, but carried himself with undeniable authority. "Yes," she replied hesitantly. He removed his hat, revealing tousled sandy blonde hair and striking blue eyes that assessed her with surprising intensity. "Adam Abernathy. I'm the owner of the Silver Star Ranch. Town council asked me to meet you." Penelope's heart sank. "Mr. Abernathy, I received word that the teaching position has been filled. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." A flicker of confusion crossed his weathered features. "No misunderstanding about the teaching position that's filled, true enough. But Mayor Thompson telegraphed that you might be willing to take on tutoring duties at my ranch instead." He studied her face. "You didn't know?" "No, I was never informed." Penelope felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "I apologize for the confusion." Adam replaced his hat, nodding thoughtfully. "Town's small. Telegraph operator probably thought you'd been notified." He glanced at her single carpetbag. "Is this all your luggage?" "Yes, I traveled light." "Smart," he commented. "Listen, Miss Rawlins, I've got 5 ranch hands who can barely write their own names and my foreman's boy who needs proper schooling. I've got a vacant bedroom in the main house where you'd stay. Pays fair room and board plus $30 a month." Penelope blinked in surprise. It wasn't what she'd expected, but it was an offer, a lifeline when she desperately needed one. I would need to know more about the arrangement, Mr. Abernathy. Call me Adam, he said, his expression softening slightly. And that's fair. How about we discuss it over lunch? The cafe across the street serves decent food. You must be hungry after your journey. The mention of food reminded Penelope that she hadn't eaten since early morning. Thank you, that would be most appreciated. Adam picked up her carpetbag despite her protests and guided her across the dusty street toward a small building with a hand-painted sign reading Emma's Cafe. Inside, the warm aroma of baking bread and coffee enveloped them. A few patrons glanced up at their entrance, curiosity evident on their faces. A plump woman with gray streaked hair tied in a bun approached them, wiping her hands on her apron. Adam Abernathy, haven't seen you in town for weeks. And who's this lovely young lady? Emma, this is Miss Penelope Rawlins from Boston. Miss Rawlins, Emma Wilson, best cook in 3 counties. Emma beamed at the introduction. Welcome to Silver Creek, dear. Come, sit down. You look like you could use a hot meal. They settled at a corner table, and Emma bustled away to fetch coffee. Penelope found herself studying Adam Abernathy more carefully. His hands were calloused and strong working hands, but there was a gentleness in how he'd handled her baggage. She guessed him to be around 30, with fine lines at the corners of his eyes suggesting he smiled occasionally, though his current expression remained serious. Tell me about yourself, Miss Rawlins, he said after Emma had brought coffee and promised stew and biscuits shortly. Penelope wrapped her fingers around the warm mug. There isn't much to tell. I completed my teaching certification in Boston last year. My parents passed away this winter, and with no family remaining, I decided to accept the position here. She hesitated, then added, or what I thought was a position. Adam nodded, seeming to understand what she left unsaid. And now you're 1,000 miles from home with no job. That summarizes it rather well, she admitted with a small, forced smile. The ranch is 15 miles outside town, he explained. It's the largest operation in the county, cattle mostly, some horses. The main house has plenty of room. You'd have your own bedroom and sitting area for teaching. My housekeeper, Mrs. Larson, handles the cooking and cleaning. And the students, 5 ranch hands, grown men who need to learn their letters better. And Daniel, my foreman's 10-year-old boy, bright kid, needs proper schooling beyond what his father can provide. Emma arrived with steaming bowls of beef stew and a plate of golden brown biscuits. Penelope realized how ravenous she was and had to restrain herself from eating too quickly. The position sounds unusual, she said after a few bites. A hint of amusement crossed Adam's face. Welcome to the West, Miss Rawlins. We make do with what we have. The town school is 3 miles from my ranch, too far for daily travel for Daniel, especially in winter. And my hands work sunup to sundown, so they can only learn at night. Penelope considered this. Would I have freedom to develop an appropriate curriculum? I'm not hiring you to tell you how to teach, he replied simply. You've got the education. I'm just providing the students. As they continued their meal, Penelope asked questions about the ranch, the area, and what would be expected of her. Adam answered directly, without embellishment but with evident pride when speaking of his land. I should be honest, Mr. Abernathy. Adam, he corrected. Adam, she conceded. I know nothing about ranching or the West. I've spent my entire life in Boston. He studied her for a moment. Do you know teaching? Yes, of course. Then that's what matters. The West isn't something you know, it's something you learn, same as anything else. His straightforward logic was oddly comforting. When the meal concluded, Penelope had made up her mind. I accept your offer, she said, provided I may return to town if the arrangement proves unsuitable. Adam nodded once. Fair enough. I've got supplies to collect, then we'll head to the ranch. Should take about an hour to finish my business in town." Penelope used that time to send a brief telegram to her father's lawyer in Boston, informing him of her new position and location. She also purchased a few necessities from the general store, trying to ignore the curious stares from local women who clearly wondered about the new arrival accompanying Adam Abernathy. By mid-afternoon, they were traveling in Adam's wagon toward the Silver Star Ranch. The rutted dirt road wound through stunning landscapes, rolling hills covered in sage and wildflowers, with distant mountains creating a dramatic backdrop. Penelope had never seen such open space, such endless sky. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. "It's beautiful," she murmured, breaking the comfortable silence that had fallen between them. Adam glanced sideways at her. "It is. Harsh sometimes, but beautiful always." "How long have you had your ranch? Built it from nothing 7 years ago," he said, a note of pride evident in his voice. "Came out with my brother after the war with just enough money to buy the land. Started with 20 head of cattle and a dream." He pointed to a ridge in the distance. "That's the northern border of my property. Ranch house is another 3 miles." As they crested a hill, Penelope caught her first glimpse of the Silver Star Ranch and gasped audibly. She'd expected something rustic, perhaps even primitive. Instead, a substantial 2-story house of timber and stone stood proudly on a rise overlooking a cluster of outbuildings, corrals, and a large barn. A creek wound through the property, its banks lined with cottonwood trees. Cattle dotted the distant pastures and several horses grazed in a nearby corral. "This is impressive," she said honestly. "Thank you. My brother Marcus was the architect. He had visions beyond just shelter." Something in Adam's tone made Penelope glance at him, noting a flicker of sadness in his expression. He died 3 years ago, pneumonia." "I'm sorry," Penelope said softly, understanding the weight of such loss all too well. Adam nodded in acknowledgement, but said nothing more as he guided the wagon down the slope toward the main house. As they approached, a flurry of activity erupted. A lean, weathered man emerged from the barn, followed by a young boy who could only be Daniel. From the house, a gray-haired woman appeared on the porch, wiping her hands on her apron in a gesture reminiscent of Emma from the cafe. "Welcome back, boss," called the weathered man, coming to help with the wagon. "This our new teacher." "Miss Rawlins, this is Tom Wheeler, my foreman," Adam introduced as he jumped down from the wagon. "And that's his son Daniel." The boy stepped forward, studying Penelope with undisguised curiosity. He had his father's lean build and intelligent eyes. "You really from Boston?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with wonder. "Pa says Boston folks talk different." Penelope smiled as Adam helped her down from the wagon. "Yes, I am. Do I sound different to you?" Daniel nodded vigorously. "Like in them books Pa reads sometimes. Fancy." "Daniel," his father chided gently, but Penelope laughed. "I suppose I do sound different, just as you sound different to my ears." The gray-haired woman approached, her expression kind but assessing. "I'm Mrs. Larson, Mr. Abernathy's housekeeper. Come along, dear. You must be exhausted from your journey. I've prepared the east bedroom for you." Adam nodded to her. "Get settled in, Miss Rawlins. Dinner's at 6. Mrs. Larson will show you around the house." As he strode toward the barn with Tom Wheeler, Penelope followed Mrs. Larson into what would be her home for the foreseeable future. The interior of the house surprised her even more than its exterior had. While undeniably a frontier home, it boasted polished wooden floors, a grand staircase, and furnishings that spoke of taste and means. Landscape paintings hung on the walls and bookshelves lined one wall of the spacious sitting room. Did Mrs. Abernathy select the furnishings? Penelope asked innocently, admiring a particularly fine writing desk by the window. Mrs. Larson gave her an odd look. There is no Mrs. Abernathy, dear. Never has been. Mr. Marcus Adams' brother had the eye for such things. Adam appreciates it but doesn't fuss over decor. Penelope felt heat rise to her cheeks at her mistake. I apologize, I simply assumed. The housekeeper's expression softened. No need to apologize. Come, I'll show you to your room. The east bedroom was larger than Penelope had expected, with a comfortable-looking four-poster bed, a dresser, washstand, and a window seat overlooking the rolling pastures. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains, giving the room a warm, welcoming feel. This is lovely, Penelope said sincerely, setting her carpetbag on the bed. Mrs. Larson smiled, pleased. Mr. Marcus designed this as a guest room, said someday the house would be filled with family and friends. A shadow crossed her face. He had such plans before he passed. It seems he was well loved, Penelope observed gently. Indeed he was. Different from Adam's sunnier disposition, always talking. Adam's the quiet sort, keeps to himself, more so since losing Marcus. Mrs. Larson moved to the door. Rest a bit, dear. I'll call you for dinner. Bathrooms down the hall if you want to freshen up. Left alone, Penelope unpacked her meager belongings, arranging her few dresses in the spacious wardrobe. She placed her parents' photograph on the bedside table, alongside her Bible and journal. The enormity of her situation suddenly washed over her. She was 1,000 miles from everything familiar, in a stranger's home, in a land that operated by rules she didn't yet understand. Yet strangely, she didn't feel afraid. Uncertain, yes, but not afraid. There was something about Adam Abernathy that inspired confidence, a steadiness, a reliability that seemed as solid as the mountains visible through her window. After washing away the dust of travel, Penelope changed into her one good dress, a simple blue cotton with white trim, and made her way downstairs, following the sounds of conversation to the dining room. Adam was already seated at the head of a large oak table, with Tom Wheeler and Daniel to his right. 3 other men, ranch hands, she presumed occupied seats on the left side. All conversation ceased when she entered and the men scrambled to their feet. Miss Rawlins, Adam acknowledged with a nod. Please join us. He indicated the empty chair at the opposite end of the table. As she took her seat, Adam made introductions. You've met Tom and Daniel. These are some of my hands, Bill Foster, Henry Jameson, and Pete McCoy. The others are out with the North herd. The men nodded respectfully, clearly uncomfortable in the presence of a lady from the East. Penelope smiled warmly at each, trying to put them at ease. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I understand I'll be working with some of you on reading and writing. Bill, a ruddy-faced man with enormous hands, cleared his throat. That'd be me and Pete, madam. Henry here already reads just fine. Better than fine, Adam commented. Henry keeps our books, Mrs. Larson entered with a platter of roasted beef, followed by a young girl carrying bowls of vegetables and potatoes. The food was simple but abundant and delicious. As the meal progressed, the initial awkwardness faded, and Penelope found herself enjoying the banter between the men. Adam spoke little, but she noticed how the others looked to him naturally, not out of fear but respect. Miss Rawlins, Daniel piped up during a lull in conversation, will you teach me about Boston and the ocean? I ain't never seen the ocean. Haven't ever seen, his father corrected gently. Daniel nodded earnestly. Haven't ever seen the ocean. Penelope smiled at his enthusiasm. Of course, geography will certainly be part of your lessons. When do we start, miss? Pete asked. He was the youngest of the hands, probably only a few years older than Penelope herself, with a shock of red hair and freckles. "I thought perhaps tomorrow evening for the adults, after your work is done," she suggested, glancing at Adam. "And mornings for Daniel, if that suits everyone." Adam nodded his approval. The small study off the sitting room should work well. It has a desk and some chairs already. "Perfect," Penelope said. "And perhaps you gentlemen could let me know what specific skills you'd like to focus on. Some might want letter writing, others might prefer reading." The men looked at each other, seemingly surprised at being consulted about their education. "I'd like to read the newspaper proper," Bill admitted. "Got family back east, and I like knowing what's happening there." "I want to write my mother without asking Henry to do it," Pete added. "She worries when she doesn't hear from me regular." After dinner, the men excused themselves to the bunkhouse, while Tom took Daniel home to the small cabin they shared near the main house. Penelope found herself alone with Adam in the sitting room, where he had poured himself a small glass of whiskey and offered her tea. "Your men seem eager to learn," she commented, settling into a comfortable armchair by the fireplace. Adam nodded, leaning against the mantelpiece. "They're good men, hard workers. Most never had much schooling, but they're not lacking intelligence. And Daniel seems bright and curious. Too curious sometimes," Adam said with the barest hint of a smile. "Always asking questions, that boy." "The best kind of student," Penelope replied, sipping her tea. They fell into a comfortable silence for a moment. Penelope studied Adam as he gazed into the fire. There was something almost melancholic about him, a man who clearly had achieved great things, yet seemed to carry a weight on his broad shoulders. "May I ask you something, Mr. Adam?" she corrected herself. He looked up, eyebrows raised slightly. "Of course. Why go to such lengths for education? Many ranchers wouldn't bother." Adam considered her question, turning his glass slowly between his fingers. "My father couldn't read, signed his name with an X his whole life, made him vulnerable to cheats, to those who'd take advantage. He was a proud man, but that shame followed him." He took a small sip of whiskey. "I won't have my men suffer the same." The simple honesty of his answer moved her. "That's admirable. It's practical," he countered, but his expression had softened slightly. "What about you, Miss Rawlins? What brings a Boston lady all the way to Wyoming Territory?" Penelope looked down at her teacup. "Necessity, initially. After my parents died, there was little keeping me in Boston except memories. When the teaching position was advertised, it seemed like an adventure, I suppose, a new beginning. And now that the position isn't what you expected," she met his gaze directly, "I still need that new beginning, and this seems as good a place as any to find it." Adam studied her for a long moment, then nodded as if confirming something to himself. "The West has a way of remaking people, Miss Rawlins. Some can't handle its demands and flee back east. Others discover strengths they never knew they had." He set his empty glass on the mantel. "I suspect you're one of the latter." His unexpected vote of confidence warmed her. "I hope to prove you right." "We start early here," Adam said, straightening. "Breakfast at 5. Don't feel obligated to join. Mrs. Larson can bring something to your room if you prefer to start later." "I'll be down at 5, Penelope assured him. She was determined to adapt to the rhythms of her new home. Adam nodded, seemingly pleased by her response. "Then I'll bid you good night, Miss Rawlins." "Good night, Adam, and thank you for this opportunity." After he left, Penelope remained by the fire, reflecting on the dramatic turn her life had taken in just one day. She had arrived in Silver Creek, expecting to teach in a schoolhouse, and instead found herself living in a fine ranch house with a taciturn cattleman who valued education and treated his workers with quiet respect. Whatever she had expected from the West, Adam Abernathy was not it. and something told her the surprises were only beginning. True to her word, Penelope was downstairs at 5 the next morning, having risen with the first light. She found Adam already seated at the table, reviewing what appeared to be ledgers while sipping coffee. He looked up in surprise as she entered. "You're punctual," he observed, closing the book. "My father always said punctuality is the courtesy of kings," she replied, accepting coffee from Mrs. Larson, who seemed equally surprised by her early appearance. "Wise man," Adam commented. He gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit. Mrs. Larson makes excellent flapjacks." Breakfast was a hearty affair, with the ranch hands filing in shortly after Penelope's arrival. They spoke of the day's work ahead, mending fences in the north pasture, moving cattle to fresh grazing land, breaking new horses. It was a foreign world to Penelope, but fascinating in its ordered complexity. After breakfast, Adam gave her a proper tour of the main house, showing her the study where she would conduct her lessons. It was a cozy room lined with bookshelves filled with volumes ranging from practical manuals on animal husbandry to classics of literature and poetry. "Your brother's collection," she guessed, running her fingers along the leather-bound spines. Adam nodded. Marcus loved books, said they were windows to worlds he'd never see in person. "He had good taste," Penelope observed, noticing volumes of Shakespeare alongside Thoreau and Whitman. "Did he read all of these?" "Every one. Multiple times for some." Adam pulled out a well-worn copy of Leaves of Grass and handed it to her. This was his favorite, said Whitman understood the American spirit better than anyone. Penelope opened the book carefully, noting the margin notes in a neat, flowing hand. "You must miss him very much." "Every day," Adam said quietly, replacing the book. "He was the dreamer. I'm just the one who makes sure the cattle get fed." "I think you're selling yourself short," Penelope replied. "This ranch is remarkable. That takes vision, not just practicality." Something flickered in Adam's eyes, surprise, perhaps, at her observation. Before he could respond, Daniel burst into the room, clutching a slate and chalk. "Miss Rawlins, Pa said we start lessons today. I brought my slate and I've been practicing my letters, see?" He thrust the slate toward her, showing neatly formed alphabet letters. Penelope smiled at his enthusiasm. "Those are excellent letters, Daniel. I can see you've been working hard." The boy beamed under her praise. Adam watched the exchange, a hint of amusement softening his usually serious expression. "I'll leave you to it," he said, moving toward the door. "I'll be back for dinner. Daniel, mind your manners with Miss Rawlins." "Yes, sir, Mr. Abernathy." The boy replied earnestly. As Adam left, Penelope realized how naturally she had already begun to settle into this new life. The teaching this she understood. The rugged landscape outside and the cattle business remained mysterious, but she found herself curious rather than intimidated. The morning lessons with Daniel went splendidly. The boy was indeed bright, with a quick mind and natural curiosity that made teaching him a pleasure. He had a solid foundation in basic reading and arithmetic, thanks to his father's efforts, but his knowledge had gaps that Penelope was eager to fill. At midday, Mrs. Larson brought them lunch, thick sandwiches and apple slices which they ate in the study, while Penelope told Daniel stories of Boston and the Atlantic Ocean. "Is it really so big you can't see the other side?" he asked, eyes wide with wonder. "It is," she confirmed. "The water stretches as far as you can see, until it meets the sky at the horizon." "Like the prairie, but with water," Daniel mused, trying to understand the concept. "Someday I'm gonna see it." After lunch, Daniel went to help his father with light chores, and Penelope took the opportunity to prepare lessons for the evening session with the ranch hands. She selected some simple texts and writing exercises, mindful that working men would have different needs and interests than schoolchildren. Later that afternoon, feeling restless after hours indoors, Penelope decided to explore the immediate surroundings of the ranch house. The day was pleasantly warm, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of sage and wildflowers. She followed a path leading toward the creek, admiring the rugged beauty of the landscape. The creek itself was a revelation, clear water bubbling over smooth stones, lined with cottonwood trees offering dappled shade. Penelope removed her shoes and stockings, sighing with pleasure as she dipped her feet in the cool water. Boston's crowded streets and rigid social expectations seemed a world away. Most Eastern ladies don't go barefoot in creeks. Penelope started at the voice, almost losing her balance on the slippery stones. Adam stood a few yards away, leading his horse to drink. She hadn't heard his approach over the sound of the water. Most Eastern ladies don't find themselves on Wyoming ranches, she countered, making no move to withdraw her feet from the creek. Besides, it's delightful. A rare smile briefly transformed Adam's face. Can't argue with that. He allowed his horse to drink, then tethered it to a nearby tree and approached the creek bank. Finding your way around all right? Yes, thank you. It's beautiful here. Penelope gestured to the surrounding landscape. So different from what I'm used to, but there's something honest about it. Adam nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The land doesn't lie, doesn't pretend to be something it's not. He picked up a flat stone and skipped it across a wider part of the creek. It bounced 4 times before sinking. How was Daniel as a student? He asked after a moment. Wonderful, Penelope replied honestly. He's quick and eager to learn. His father has taught him well. Tom does his best. Adam skipped another stone. He promised his wife before she died that Daniel would get an education. When did Daniel lose his mother? Penelope asked gently. 3 years ago. Same pneumonia outbreak that took Marcus. Adam's expression darkened with the memory. Bad winter, lost a lot of good people. Penelope's heart ached at the thought of so much loss. I'm sorry, that must have been terribly difficult for everyone. Adam was quiet for a long moment, then said, After Marcus died, I nearly sold the ranch. Couldn't see the point anymore. It was his dream as much as mine. He looked out across the water, his profile strong against the late afternoon light. Tom convinced me to stay. Said Marcus would haunt us both if I gave up what we'd built. Do you regret staying? Penelope asked. Adam's gaze shifted to her, his blue eyes thoughtful. No, Tom was right. This land, it gets in your blood, becomes part of you. He glanced down at her feet still in the water and added with the ghost of a smile, Looks like it might be working on you already. Penelope laughed, a light, genuine sound that seemed to surprise them both. Perhaps it is. That evening, after a hearty dinner, Penelope conducted her first lesson with the ranch hands in the study. Bill and Pete arrived promptly, looking uncomfortable in clean shirts, their hair slicked down with water. She had worried they might resent being taught by a woman, particularly one younger than themselves, but their eagerness to learn quickly dispelled her concerns. Bill wanted to improve his reading skills, while Pete focused on writing letters to his mother in Minnesota. They worked diligently for an hour, and Penelope was impressed by their determination despite their obvious fatigue after a long day of physical labor. You're both making excellent progress, she told them sincerely as the lesson concluded. With regular practice, you'll see improvement quickly. Thank you kindly, Miss Rawlins, Bill said, carefully placing his slate in a drawer for safekeeping. Never had a proper teacher before. My ma will be right pleased to get a letter in my own hand, Pete added with a shy smile. Been wanting to tell her about Wyoming without Henry reading all my business. After they left, Penelope tidied the study, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Teaching had always been her calling, and seeing the genuine desire to learn in her unusual students reaffirmed that choice. She was replacing books on shelves when Adam appeared in the doorway. "Successful first day?" he inquired. "Very," she replied. "Your men are dedicated students." "Good men," Adam said simply. He entered the study, looking around as if seeing it with new eyes. "This room hasn't been used properly since Marcus died. He used to read to the hands on winter evenings. Whitman, mostly. Some Shakespeare when he was feeling ambitious." "It sounds like he was a wonderful man," Penelope said softly. Adam nodded. "The better half of me," my father used to say. He picked up a book, turning it in his hands. "I didn't have his way with words, or his vision. But you've built something remarkable here," Penelope observed. "That takes a different kind of vision." Adam looked up, studying her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You're kind to say so." "Not kind, honest," she corrected him. "I may be new to the West, but I recognize accomplishment when I see it." A moment of understanding passed between them, brief but undeniable. Then Adam cleared his throat and changed the subject. "Tomorrow's Saturday. No formal lessons, but if you'd like to see more of the ranch, I could show you around." Penelope brightened at the suggestion. "I'd like that very much." "Good." Adam nodded, seeming pleased. "We'll ride out after breakfast. Mrs. Larson can find you suitable riding clothes." After wishing her good night, Adam left, and Penelope found herself smiling as she extinguished the lamp. One day at Silver Star Ranch had already begun to change her perspective on the West, on teaching, and perhaps most surprisingly, on Adam Abernathy himself. The following morning dawned clear and bright. Penelope dressed in the riding clothes. Mrs. Larson had provided a divided skirt and simple blouse that allowed freedom of movement while maintaining modesty. She had ridden occasionally in Boston's parks, but suspected Western riding would be quite different. At breakfast, Adam seemed pleased to see her in appropriate attire. "Ever ridden astride?" he asked as they walked toward the stables afterward. "No," Penelope admitted. "Only side saddle, and not extensively." "Side saddle won't do out here," Adam said, leading her into the cool dimness of the stable. "But don't worry, I've got a gentle mare who'll take good care of you." The mare in question was a pretty chestnut named Copper, with intelligent eyes and a gentle demeanor. Adam showed Penelope how to saddle the horse properly, his large hands moving with surprising delicacy as he tightened straps and adjusted stirrups. "She's beautiful," Penelope said, stroking the mare's velvet nose. "Good-natured, too," Adam replied. "Raised her from a foal." He demonstrated the correct way to mount, then steadied the horse as Penelope somewhat awkwardly settled into the saddle. "It feels strange," she admitted, adjusting to the unfamiliar position. "You'll get used to it." Adam mounted his own horse, a powerful black gelding with effortless grace. "Just relax and let Copper do the work for now." They rode at a leisurely pace away from the ranch buildings, Copper following Adam's horse without Penelope having to do much guiding. As they crested a hill, Adam pulled up and waited for her to join him. "Silver Star," he said with quiet pride, gesturing at the sprawling landscape before them. From this vantage point, Penelope could see the full extent of the ranch, rolling grassland stretching to distant mountains, dotted with grazing cattle. The creek they'd visited yesterday wound like a silver ribbon through the property, and she could make out several smaller structures line cabins. Adam explained at strategic points around the ranch. "It's magnificent," she breathed, truly awed by the scale and beauty of it all. "How many acres?" 20,000, Adam replied. "Started with just 500 when Marcus and I arrived." "How did you acquire so much?" Adam shrugged slightly. "Hard work, good timing, some luck." He pointed to the eastern section. That peace came with the widow Henderson's property when she decided to move back to Pennsylvania. Western section was Old Man Miller's failing sheep operation. Bought it when he couldn't make payments to the bank. They continued riding, Adam pointing out landmarks and sharing the history of different parts of the ranch. He seemed more relaxed away from the house, more willing to talk. Penelope found herself charmed by this different side of him, the obvious pride he took in the land, his deep knowledge of the ecosystem. The way he spoke of his cattle not as mere commodities, but as living beings deserving of good care. Most people think ranching is just about fattening cows for market, he explained as they dismounted by a particularly beautiful stretch of the creek for a rest. But it's about understanding the land, what it needs, what it can give. Take too much, and eventually it gives nothing. That's rather poetic, Penelope observed, accepting the canteen of water he offered. A hint of color touched Adam's tanned cheeks. Marcus's influence, I suppose. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching a hawk circle lazily overhead. Adam occasionally pointed out wildlife, a jackrabbit darting through sagebrush, a distant coyote trotting along a ridgeline. I never imagined such space, Penelope said eventually. In Boston, everything is close, contained. Here the land just continues. Adam nodded, understanding. It can be overwhelming at first. Some folks can't stand it, feel too exposed, too small. And you, how does it make you feel? Adam considered this, his blue eyes scanning the horizon. Free, he said simply. Like I can breathe. The sincerity in his voice touched something in Penelope. She was beginning to understand the pull of this place, the way it could capture a person's heart despite, or perhaps because of its vastness and challenges. As the sun climbed higher, they remounted and continued their tour. Adam showed her a calving pasture where new spring calves stayed close to their mothers, a natural spring that never ran dry even in drought years, and finally, a hilltop cemetery where 5 grave markers stood in solemn row. My parents, he explained, gesturing to the first 2 stones. They followed us out from Pennsylvania a year after we established the ranch. Father's heart gave out that first winter. Mother lasted another 2 years. The 3rd marker bore the name Marcus Abernathy, with dates indicating he had died at 35, just 3 years earlier. The 4th and 5th markers belonged to a ranch hand who died in an accident and an elderly cook who'd passed peacefully in his sleep. We take care of our own, Adam said quietly. Penelope nodded, understanding the significance. In this vast wilderness, community wasn't just a nicety, it was essential for survival. That Adam considered his workers, his own, spoke volumes about his character. On their way back to the ranch house, they stopped to observe a group of hands working with young horses in a corral. Tom Wheeler was directing the operation, calling instructions as a young cowboy attempted to stay seated on a bucking colt. Breaking new stock for the Army contract, Adam explained. We supply cavalry mounts to Fort Laramie. Penelope watched in fascination as the horse bucked and twisted, the cowboy somehow managing to stay mounted despite the animal's best efforts. Isn't that dangerous? Very, Adam acknowledged, but necessary. An unbroken horse isn't much use for riding. After several dramatic minutes, the horse finally settled, trotting around the corral with the rider still aboard. The other cowboys cheered and Tom looked up, noticing Adam and Penelope for the first time. Making progress, boss, he called. Adam raised a hand in acknowledgement. Looks good. We'll talk details later. As they continued toward the house, Penelope found herself reflecting on the morning's experiences. Thank you for showing me the ranch, she said sincerely. I understand now why you love it so. Adam glanced at her, something warming in his normally reserved expression. It's good to share it with someone who appreciates it. Back at the stables, Adam helped Penelope dismount, his strong hands at her waist momentarily causing her breath to catch. If he noticed her reaction, he gave no indication, focusing instead on showing her how to properly care for her mount after a ride. "A good horsewoman always tends to her horse before herself," he explained, demonstrating how to brush Copper down. Penelope followed his example, grateful for the practical instruction. "I have much to learn about ranch life." "You're doing fine," Adam assured her, the simple praise warming her more than it should have. That evening, after dinner, a thunderstorm rolled in from the mountains, bringing spectacular lightning displays and booming thunder that rattled the windows. Penelope, who had been reading in the sitting room, found herself both awed and slightly unnerved by the storm's intensity. "Storms move differently here," Adam observed, entering the room with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her. "In the east they pass quickly. Here they can stall against the mountains, gain strength." "It's magnificent," she said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "A bit frightening, but beautiful." Adam nodded, taking a seat across from her. Marcus used to sit on the porch during storms, writing in his journal, said they inspired him. A fond smile touched his lips at the memory. "I'd drag him inside when the lightning got too close." "You were protective of him," Penelope observed, "always, even as children." Adam's expression grew distant. He was smaller, bookish, easy target for bullies. "And you were his defender." Adam shrugged. "Someone had to be. Our father was often away on business, Mother tried, but—" He trailed off, then changed course. "Marcus made me promise to keep the ranch going if anything happened to him, said it was our legacy." "You've honored that promise beautifully," Penelope said softly. Adam met her gaze, something vulnerable briefly visible in his eyes. "I try." A particularly loud crash of thunder made Penelope jump slightly, spilling a drop of coffee onto her skirt. Adam produced a handkerchief from his pocket, offering it to her with a sympathetic smile. "Sorry," she said, dabbing at the small stain. "We had thunderstorms in Boston, but nothing like this." "The West doesn't do anything halfway," Adam replied. "Storms included." They fell into comfortable conversation as the storm continued to rage outside, discussing books from Marcus's collection that they had both read, sharing opinions on Thoreau's ideas about nature and society. Penelope was surprised to discover that, despite his practical demeanor, Adam had read widely and thought deeply about literature and philosophy. "You sound like you've had considerable education," she observed. 2 years at university in Pennsylvania before the war," he explained. "Not as much as Marcus. He completed his degree, but enough to develop a taste for good books." "You fought in the war?" Penelope asked carefully, aware that this could be a sensitive topic. Adam nodded, his expression sobering. "Union cavalry." "Marcus too, though he served as a clerk most of the time. I saw action at Gettysburg, the Wilderness, Petersburg." "My father served as well," Penelope said. "Medical Corps." "A noble service," Adam commented. "The doctors saved as many as the soldiers." The storm eventually subsided, leaving behind a fresh, clean scent that wafted through the open windows. Adam rose to stoke the fire, which had burned low during their conversation. "I should let you get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow's Sunday, no formal work, but you're welcome to join us for the service if you like." "Service?" Penelope asked, surprised. "Nothing formal. No church within 20 miles, so we hold our own gathering. Tom reads from the Bible, we sing a few hymns. Not much, but it keeps the Sabbath." "I would love to attend," Penelope said sincerely. Adam nodded, seeming pleased. 9 o'clock in the main room of the bunkhouse. Nothing fancy. "Thank you for the coffee," Penelope said, rising, "and the conversation. I've enjoyed it very much." "As have I," Adam replied, his voice holding a warmth that hadn't been there when they first met. "Good night, Miss Rawlins." "Penelope," she said impulsively. "Please call me Penelope." Adam looked momentarily surprised, then nodded. "Good night, Penelope." As she climbed the stairs to her room, Penelope reflected on how quickly her perception of Adam Abernathy had evolved. The stern, taciturn rancher she'd first met had revealed himself to be thoughtful, educated, and unexpectedly kind. She found herself looking forward to learning more about him, a realization that both excited and unsettled her. The following weeks fell into a comfortable routine. Mornings were devoted to Daniel's lessons, afternoons to her own explorations of the ranch and preparation for evening sessions with the ranch hands, whose numbers had grown as word spread of the Eastern lady teacher's patience and skill. Adam was often busy with ranch operations, but they typically shared meals and occasionally spent evenings in the sitting room, discussing books or local news. These quiet conversations had become something Penelope looked forward to each day, finding Adam's perspective on the world insightful and often surprising. As May turned to June, the Wyoming landscape transformed with wildflowers painting the meadows in vibrant colors. Penelope's riding skills improved dramatically under Adam's occasional guidance, and she began to feel more at home in the saddle, even joining Adam on longer rides to distant parts of the ranch when her teaching schedule permitted. On one such ride in late June, they stopped to rest their horses by a secluded pond surrounded by cottonwoods and willows. The day was warm, the sky an impossible blue dotted with puffy white clouds. "It's like something from a painting," Penelope observed, dismounting carefully and stretching her legs. Adam nodded, securing the horses where they could drink. "Marcus found this spot our first year here, called it Eden, used to come fishing when ranch duties allowed." "You fish?" Penelope asked, settling on a sun-warmed rock by the water's edge. "When there's time," Adam replied with a small smile, "which isn't often. The demands of running such a large operation must be overwhelming sometimes." Adam joined her on the rock, removing his hat and running a hand through his hair. "It can be. Spring and fall are the busiest calving and roundup. Summer's easier if the rains come on schedule. Winter." He shook his head slightly. "Winter's hard. Blizzards, frozen water, sick cattle, you'll see." The casual assumption that she would still be at Silver Star when winter came sent an unexpected thrill through Penelope. 2 months ago, she had viewed her position at the ranch as temporary, a stopgap, until something more conventional arose. Now, the thought of leaving felt strangely uncomfortable. "Tell me about Boston," Adam said suddenly. "Do you miss it?" Penelope considered the question carefully. "I miss certain aspects, the libraries, the concerts, some dear friends, but the city itself." She looked out across the sparkling water. "It feels strangely distant now, as if I dreamed that life rather than lived it." "The West has that effect," Adam observed. "It reshapes your perspective." "It certainly has reshaped mine," Penelope admitted. "I came here with such fixed ideas about what my life should be, what teaching should look like. And now," she smiled, meeting his gaze, "now I teach cowboys to write letters to their mothers and a 10-year-old boy about ocean tides he's never seen. And somehow, it feels more meaningful than anything I'd planned." Something in Adam's expression softened. "You've made a difference here, Penelope. The men look forward to their lessons. Daniel talks about you constantly. Even Mrs. Larson says the house feels more alive since you came." His sincere words warmed her. "Thank you. That means a great deal to me." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by birdsong and the gentle lapping of water at the pond's edge. Penelope was acutely aware of Adam beside her, his steady presence, the faint scent of leather and pine that seemed to cling to him. "There's a social in town next Saturday," Adam said eventually. "Dance at the town hall, potluck supper. The ranch always sends a delegation." He glanced at her, something almost hesitant in his expression. "Would you like to attend? Might be a good opportunity to meet more people from town." "I'd love to," Penelope replied, perhaps too quickly. "That is, if you think I wouldn't be intruding on your ranch tradition." "No intrusion," Adam assured her. "In fact, Mrs. Larson has been hinting rather heavily that I should invite you. Says it's not right to keep you isolated out here." Penelope laughed. "Hardly isolated with lessons to teach and an entire ranch to explore. But yes, I would enjoy seeing more of Silver Creek." Adam nodded, looking pleased. "Good. We'll plan to ride in Saturday afternoon, stay overnight at the hotel. Sunday's the day of rest anyway." As they mounted their horses to return to the ranch house, Penelope found herself unreasonably excited about the prospect of the town social. It wasn't just the opportunity to meet new people or enjoy music and dancing. It was the fact that Adam had specifically invited her, stepping outside his usual reserved manner to do so. The week leading up to the social passed in a flurry of anticipation. Mrs. Larson helped Penelope refurbish her best dress, adding fresh lace at the collar and cuffs, and letting out the seams slightly to accommodate the changes in Penelope's figure from weeks of hearty ranch cooking and outdoor activity. "You'll be the prettiest girl at the dance," the housekeeper declared as Penelope tried on the newly altered garment. "Though I'm partial, of course." Penelope blushed at the compliment. "Thank you for your help, Mrs. Larson. I would have been quite lost without your skill with a needle." The older woman waved away her thanks. "It's nice to have a young lady to fuss over. Been too many years of just mending men's shirts and pants." She hesitated, then added, "The boss seems different lately. Lighter somehow. I haven't seen him this present since before Mr. Marcus passed." Penelope wasn't quite sure how to respond to this observation. "The ranch appears to be doing well. Perhaps that accounts for his improved spirits." Mrs. Larson gave her a knowing look, but said nothing more on the subject. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the journey into town. Adam had arranged for Penelope's belongings to be transported by wagon, allowing them to ride horseback the 15 miles to Silver Creek. Penelope, now much more confident in the saddle, found herself enjoying the ride immensely. "You've become quite the horsewoman," Adam observed as they rode side by side. "I have an excellent teacher," she replied with a smile. Adam actually chuckled, a rare sound that Penelope found she wanted to hear more often. "Copper deserves the credit. She's a patient mount." They arrived in Silver Creek by mid-afternoon, the town considerably more lively than it had been when Penelope first arrived 2 months earlier. The main street bustled with activity as people prepared for the evening's festivities. Adam escorted Penelope to the Silver Creek Hotel, where he had reserved rooms for them both. The proprietor, a plump woman named Mrs. Jenkins, greeted them warmly. "Mr. Abernathy. How lovely to see you in town." Her curious gaze shifted to Penelope. "And this must be your teacher I've heard so much about." "Miss Penelope Rawlins," Adam confirmed. "She's been a tremendous asset to the ranch." "Pleased to meet you properly, dear," Mrs. Jenkins said. "We've all been curious about the Boston lady teaching at Silver Star. Emma Wilson says you've got all the cowboys reading poetry." Penelope laughed. "Not quite poetry yet, but they're making excellent progress with their letters." After ensuring Penelope was comfortably settled in her room, Adam excused himself to attend to some business matters before the social. "I'll call for you at 6 if that suits," he asked. "Perfect," Penelope replied, suddenly feeling oddly shy. Once alone, Penelope bathed and changed into her freshened dress, arranging her hair in a more elaborate style than she typically wore at the ranch. Looking in the mirror, she hardly recognized herself. Her skin had taken on a healthy glow from her time outdoors, and her eyes seemed brighter, more alive. Precisely at 6, a knock came at her door. Adam stood in the hallway, and Penelope's breath caught at the sight of him. Gone was the everyday working attire of the ranch. In its place, he wore a well-tailored dark suit, crisp white shirt, and string tie. His hair was neatly combed, and he'd trimmed his beard. He looked handsome and distinguished and decidedly uncomfortable in his formal attire. "You look beautiful," he said simply, his blue eyes warming as they took in her appearance. "Thank you," Penelope replied, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. "You look very handsome yourself." A hint of color touched Adam's tanned face. "This suit sees daylight about twice a year. Marcus always said I wore it like a man sentenced to hang." Penelope laughed. "I think you wear it very well." They walked the short distance to the town hall, where lanterns had been strung across the entrance, casting a welcoming glow. Inside, the simple building had been transformed with bunting, flowers, and tables laden with food. A small band was setting up on a raised platform at one end of the room, and already several dozen people milled about, greeting friends and neighbors. Their entrance caused a small stir. Adam Abernathy, at a social event, was apparently noteworthy, and with a lady on his arm, even more so. Penelope found herself the center of curious but mostly friendly attention as Adam introduced her to what seemed like half the town. Mayor Thompson, a portly man with an impressive mustache, pumped her hand enthusiastically. "So pleased you found a position at Silver Star, Miss Rawlins. Adam here runs the finest spread in the territory. Couldn't have landed in a better place." "I've been very fortunate," Penelope agreed, glancing at Adam, who stood beside her, a proprietary hand at the small of her back. Emma from the cafe bustled over, beaming. "Look at you two. Don't you make the handsomest couple this side of the Mississippi?" Adam cleared his throat. "Miss Rawlins is our teacher, Emma." The cafe owner's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Of course she is, dear. Now come get some food before these vultures devour it all." The evening progressed pleasantly, with Penelope finding herself genuinely enjoying the company of Silver Creek's residents. They were curious about her Eastern background but welcomed her warmly, especially once they learned of her success in teaching the Silver Star hands. When the band struck up a lively tune, couples began taking to the floor for dancing. Adam, who had remained close to Penelope throughout the evening, turned to her with an almost hesitant expression. "Would you care to dance?" he asked. "I should warn you I'm not particularly skilled." "I would love to," Penelope replied, placing her hand in his offered one. "And I doubt you could be worse than my cousin Frederick, who once broke 2 of my toes at a Christmas ball." Adam laughed, that rare, wonderful sound that transformed his face completely. "I'll endeavor to preserve your toes, at least." Contrary to his warning, Adam proved to be a competent dancer, guiding Penelope through a waltz with surprising grace for such a tall man. His hand at her waist was warm and steady, his eyes never leaving her face as they moved among the other couples. "You dance very well for someone who claimed no skill," Penelope observed. "Marcus insisted we both learn before coming west," Adam explained. "Said even cowboys need civilization sometimes. Your brother sounds like he was a remarkable man." "He was." Adam's expression softened with memory. "You would have liked him. He could talk for hours about books and ideas, made friends everywhere he went." "Unlike his more reserved brother," Penelope suggested gently. A small smile touched Adam's lips. "I've never been one for unnecessary words." "I've noticed," Penelope replied with a teasing smile. though you've become more conversational lately. Have I? Adam's eyes held hers, something unspoken passing between them. I suppose I've found someone worth conversing with. The simple statement sent warmth flooding through Penelope. Before she could respond, the music ended, and they were separated by well-meaning townspeople eager to claim their attention. The evening continued with more dancing, conversation, and laughter. Penelope danced with several other men, including Mayor Thompson and Bill Foster, who had come to town with a group of Silver Star hands. But it was the dances with Adam that left her breathless, aware of him in a way that both thrilled and confused her. As the night drew to a close, Adam escorted Penelope back to the hotel. The streets of Silver Creek were quiet now, with most residents still at the social or already retired for the evening. The moon hung full and bright overhead, casting silver light on the wooden boardwalks. "Did you enjoy yourself?" Adam asked as they walked slowly, neither seeming eager for the evening to end. "Very much," Penelope replied honestly. "Everyone was so kind and welcoming. I can see why you value this community." "Good people," Adam agreed. "Been through hard times together, Indian troubles in the early days, drought 2 years back, the pneumonia outbreak. Builds bonds." They reached the hotel and paused at the entrance, the moment suddenly charged with unspoken possibilities. "Thank you for inviting me tonight," Penelope said softly. "It meant a great deal to me." Adam studied her face in the moonlight, something intense in his gaze. "Thank you for coming. It's been different having you at Silver Star. Better." The sincerity in his voice touched Penelope deeply. On impulse, she reached up and gently touched his cheek. "Good night, Adam." For a moment she thought he might kiss her. His expression softened and he leaned slightly toward her. But then he straightened, taking a small step back. "Good night, Penelope," he said, his voice husky. "Sleep well." As Penelope climbed the stairs to her room, her heart racing, she realized with sudden clarity that her feelings for Adam Abernathy had grown far beyond simple admiration or friendship. Somewhere amid the lessons and shared meals and evening conversations, she had fallen in love with the quiet, thoughtful rancher. The realization both exhilarated and terrified her. She had come west seeking a fresh start, not romantic entanglement. And despite moments of warmth and connection, Adam remained in many ways an enigma, a man still partly defined by loss and duty. Sleep came fitfully that night, her thoughts too full of Adam and the uncertainty of her situation to find rest easily. The next morning, they returned to the ranch after attending a simple church service in Silver Creek. The ride home was quieter than their journey to town, both seemingly lost in their own thoughts. Yet it wasn't an uncomfortable silence, rather. It felt like the pause between chapters in a story, a moment of anticipation rather than conclusion. Life at Silver Star resumed its rhythm in the days that followed, though Penelope was acutely aware of subtle changes in her interactions with Adam. His gaze lingered longer when their eyes met across the dinner table. He found more reasons to join her and Daniel for parts of their morning lessons. The evening conversations in the sitting room felt more intimate somehow, even when they discussed mundane topics. A week after the social, a letter arrived for Penelope from Boston, her father's lawyer, responding to her update about her position at Silver Star Ranch. The contents disturbed her more than she expected. Bad news. Adam asked that evening, noticing her distraction as they sat in the sitting room after dinner. Penelope hesitated, then decided honesty was best. "Not bad, exactly. My father's lawyer has found a position for me at a prestigious girls' school in Boston. The headmistress is an old family friend who's willing to take me on immediately if I wish to return east." Adam's face remained carefully neutral, though she thought she detected a flicker of concern in his eyes. "I see. It sounds like a good opportunity." "On paper, it's exactly what I trained for," Penelope agreed. "Respectable position, fair salary, familiar surroundings. When would you need to leave?" Adam's voice was steady, but his hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the book he held. "That's the thing," Penelope said slowly. "I'm not certain I want to go at all." Adam looked up sharply, something like hope flashing briefly across his features. "No," Penelope shook her head. "2 months ago I would have jumped at the offer. But now—" She gestured toward the window, beyond which lay the ranch and the vast Wyoming landscape. "This place, these people, you have come to mean a great deal to me." The atmosphere in the room seemed to shift, becoming charged with unspoken emotions. "Are you asking my opinion?" Adam said carefully. "I suppose I am," Penelope admitted. Adam set his book aside and leaned forward, his blue eyes intent on hers. "I can't tell you what to do, Penelope. Boston offers comforts and society that Silver Star never could, but I can tell you that." He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "That you've brought something to this ranch to me that I didn't know was missing until you arrived." The simple honesty of his statement touched Penelope deeply. "Adam—" A sudden commotion outside interrupted them, voices shouting, horses' hooves pounding into the yard. Adam was on his feet immediately, striding to the window. "Riders," he said tensely. "Coming fast. Something's wrong." He moved quickly to the door, Penelope following close behind. Outside, 2 ranch hands were dismounting from lathered horses, their expressions grave as they approached Adam. "What is it?" Adam demanded. "Rustlers hit the north pasture," one man reported breathlessly. "Took about 50 head. Tom sent us to fetch you. He's tracking them with Pete and Henry." Adam's expression hardened. "How long ago?" "Hour, maybe less. They're headed for the border, Tom thinks." "Wake the bunkhouse," Adam ordered. "Every man who can ride. Armed." He turned to Penelope, his expression apologetic. "I have to go." "Of course," she said, understanding the seriousness of the situation. Cattle rustling was not merely theft, it was a threat to the ranch's very survival. Adam strode toward the stables, calling instructions to the gathering men. Penelope returned to the house, finding Mrs. Larson already awake and preparing coffee and food for the riders. "Rustlers?" the housekeeper asked grimly. Penelope nodded. "Adam's organizing a party to go after them." "Happens every few years," Mrs. Larson said, her hands moving efficiently as she wrapped biscuits and meat. "Thieves thinking Silver Star's too big to notice a few missing cattle. They'll learn different." Within 30 minutes, Adam and 12 armed men rode out into the darkness, leaving the ranch strangely quiet and tense. Penelope found sleep impossible, instead keeping Mrs. Larson company in the kitchen as they waited for news. "He'll be careful, Mrs. Larson assured her, correctly reading Penelope's anxiety. "Adam's not one for unnecessary risks. But rustlers are dangerous men," Penelope said softly. "So is Adam Abernathy when his ranch is threatened," the housekeeper replied with surprising fierceness. "Those thieves don't know what they've awakened." The night passed slowly, dawn breaking with no word from the pursuing party. Daniel arrived for his lessons as usual, but Penelope found it difficult to focus, her thoughts constantly straying to Adam and the dangers he might be facing. It was mid-afternoon when they finally heard hoofbeats approaching. Penelope rushed to the porch, Daniel at her heels, to see the men returning dusty, tired, but apparently unharmed. Her eyes searched frantically for Adam, finding him at the head of the group, his face grim but resolute. Relief flooded through her at the sight of him safe. As he dismounted, she could see he was exhausted, his movements stiff with fatigue. "Did you catch them?" Daniel asked excitedly. Adam nodded, handing his reins to another hand. Got the cattle back, sheriffs got the rustlers, all of them. Mrs. Larson asked, appearing behind Penelope with coffee and food. All but one, Adam said, accepting the coffee gratefully. He won't be stealing cattle again. The implications of his words sent a chill through Penelope. Adam noticed her expression and touched her arm gently. He drew on Tom, he explained quietly. I had no choice, Penelope nodded, understanding. This was the reality of the West, sometimes harsh, sometimes violent, but never without its own form of justice. I'm just glad you're safe, she said softly. Something in Adam's expression softened. I need to see to the men and horses. Then we should talk. The quiet urgency in his voice made Penelope's heart race. She nodded, returning to the house to help Mrs. Larson prepare food for the hungry men. It was early evening before Adam sought her out, finding her in the garden behind the house where she often sat to read or simply enjoy the sunset. He had bathed and changed, but weariness still etched his features. May I join you? He asked. Penelope nodded, setting aside her book. Of course. You must be exhausted. It was a long ride, Adam acknowledged, settling beside her on the garden bench, but worth it. The rustlers were part of a gang that's been hitting ranches all across the territory. Sheriff thinks we've broken their operation for good. I'm glad, Penelope said sincerely. And relieved you weren't hurt. Adam was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather his thoughts. When we were pursuing those men, all I could think about was getting back here to the ranch, to you. It made me realize something I've been avoiding. Penelope's heart quickened. What's that? Adam turned to face her directly, his blue eyes intense in the fading light. I don't want you to go back to Boston, Penelope. These past months with you here have been. I've felt alive again in a way I haven't since Marcus died. Adam, she began, but he gently placed a hand over hers. Please, let me finish. I know I'm not an easy man. I'm set in my ways, too serious most times. I can't offer the refinements of Boston or the society you're accustomed to. But I can offer you this ranch, this life if it's something you could want. Understanding dawned on Penelope slowly. Are you proposing to me? Adam's expression was earnest, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Inelegantly, perhaps. But yes, I love you, Penelope. I think I have since that first day when you stood in Silver Creek and faced the collapse of your plans with such quiet dignity. Tears pricked at Penelope's eyes, joy welling up from some deep place inside her. Oh, Adam, I love you too. These months at Silver Star, they've changed me, shown me what truly matters. She squeezed his hand. I don't want to go back to Boston. My place is here now with you, with this ranch, with the life we could build together. Relief and happiness transformed Adam's face. He drew her gently into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was tender and reverent, yet held the promise of passion. When they finally parted, Adam rested his forehead against hers. I've been so afraid to hope, he admitted. Afraid that your fondness for the ranch, for the teaching, wouldn't extend to a life partnership with me. Penelope touched his face gently. I fell in love with the ranch because it's an extension of you, Adam. Your vision, your dedication, your heart. Adam kissed her again, more deeply this time, his arms tightening around her as if he feared she might vanish. When he finally drew back, there was wonder in his eyes. Marcus would have loved you, he said softly. He always said I needed someone who could see past my gruff exterior. Your brother was a wise man, Penelope replied with a smile, and I wish I could have known him. But I see his legacy everywhere on this ranch, in the books, in the beauty of the house, in the man you've become. They remained in the garden until twilight deepened into true darkness, planning their future together. They would marry soon. Adam insisted no long engagement necessary when both were certain of their hearts. Penelope would continue teaching. expanding her role to include children from neighboring ranches who lacked access to formal education. Mrs. Larson will be thrilled, Adam said as they walked hand in hand back to the house. She's been hinting for weeks that I should make my intentions known before some cowboy stole your heart, Penelope laughed. The only heart being stolen was mine, by a certain taciturn rancher who pretends to be all business but reads Shakespeare by lamplight. The news of their engagement was met with delight by the ranch household. Mrs. Larson actually wept with joy, confessing she'd been praying for just this outcome since Penelope's arrival. Daniel was excited at the prospect of having his teacher permanently at the ranch, while the hands offered awkward but sincere congratulations. "About time," Tom Wheeler said gruffly, shaking Adam's hand. "Ranch needs a proper lady, always has." The wedding took place 3 weeks later on a perfect Wyoming summer day. The ceremony was held at Silver Star, beneath the cottonwood trees by the creek that Adam had shown Penelope on their first ride together. The entire ranch turned out, along with most of Silver Creek's residents and ranchers from miles around. Emma Wilson provided a magnificent wedding feast, and the celebration continued well into the evening, with music and dancing under the stars. As twilight settled over the land, Adam led Penelope away from the festivities to a quiet spot overlooking the ranch. "Happy, Mrs. Abernathy?" he asked, his arms encircling her from behind as they watched lanterns illuminate the gathering below. "Completely," she replied, leaning back against his solid strength. "I came west seeking a teaching position and found a home instead." Adam turned her gently to face him, his expression more open and joyful than she had ever seen it. "When you first arrived, I told the hands you were just a guest our teacher, staying temporarily." He brushed a strand of hair from her face tenderly. "But I knew, even then, that you were meant to be the lady of this home, our home." Penelope's heart swelled with love for this man who had seemed so forbidding that first day in Silver Creek. "I thought I was just a guest," she said softly, "until the cowboy said I was the lady of his home." Adam's laugh was warm and free as he drew her close. "And so you are, my love, so you always will be." As they sealed this promise with a kiss, Penelope knew with absolute certainty that her impulsive journey west had led her exactly where she was meant to be, not to a schoolhouse in Silver Creek, but to Silver Star Ranch and the arms of Adam Abernathy. 5 years later, Silver Star Ranch had flourished beyond even Adam's ambitious dreams. The herd had doubled in size, commanding premium prices at market. The ranch house had expanded to include a proper schoolroom where Penelope now taught not only Daniel Wheeler, now a tall, thoughtful 15-year-old, with aspirations to attend university, but 12 other children from surrounding ranches and farms. More significantly, the sound of children's laughter now filled the halls that Marcus Abernathy had designed with family in mind. 3-year-old Marcus, named for his uncle, had his father's blue eyes and his mother's curious nature. 1-year-old Elizabeth, a sweet-tempered baby with her father's sandy hair, was beginning to toddle after her brother on sturdy legs. On a warm autumn afternoon, Penelope stood on the porch watching Adam teach little Marcus to ride his first pony, a gentle creature barely larger than a dog. Her heart swelled as Adam's strong hand steadied the boy, his face alight with pride and love as his son giggled with delight. Mrs. Larson appeared beside her, little Elizabeth on her hip. "Who would have thought," the housekeeper said fondly, "that stern Adam Abernathy would turn out to be such a doting father?" "I knew," Penelope replied with a smile, accepting her daughter from the older woman's arms. "He just needed the chance." Later that evening, with the children asleep and the ranch quiet under a canopy of stars. Adam and Penelope sat together on the porch swing that had been his wedding gift to her. His arm rested comfortably around her shoulders, her head against his chest. "I received a letter from my father's lawyer today," Penelope said. "Remember Caroline Phillips from the girls' school in Boston, the one who replaced me when I declined the position?" Adam nodded. Vaguely, "What about her?" "She's engaged to the mathematics teacher and leaving her post," Penelope said with a laugh. "They asked again if I might be interested in returning to take her place." Adam's arm tightened slightly around her. "And are you?" Penelope tilted her head to look at him, seeing the teasing light in his eyes. "What do you think? Trade all this," she gestured to the moonlit landscape before them, "for Boston's crowded streets. Trade my cowboy students and our beautiful children for society girls. Never." Adam smiled, the rare, full smile that had become more frequent in their years together. "Just checking, though I'd follow you to Boston if that's what you wanted." "I know you would," Penelope said softly, touching his face. "That's one of the countless reasons I love you. But my heart is here now, Adam. Has been since that first day when a stern rancher met a displaced Boston schoolteacher and offered her a home." "Best decision I ever made," Adam murmured, bending to kiss her with the same tenderness and passion that still made her heart race after 5 years of marriage. As they sat together in the Wyoming night, watching the moon rise over the land they both loved, Penelope reflected on the strange workings of fate. She had come west seeking only employment and found instead her true purpose, her true home, and her true love. The woman who thought she was just a guest had indeed become the lady of Adam Abernathy's home and his heart. And there was nowhere else on earth she would rather be.